Ruby woke up, stuck to the wall, covered in the weird stuff that Ruby and her team encountered. She looked around and noticed that only her and Yang were close by to each other. Yang? Ruby said. Yang woke up. She looked at her little sister. Ruby, how we got here? Yang said. But then she noticed that her sister had a terrified look on her face. Sitting right in front of them was One Eye, the large xenomorph that kidnapped them. One Eye approached Ruby and just stared at her. Yang struggled. Go get away from my sister, you overgrown, ugly bug! Yang shouted, trying to make her restrained. The xenomorph stared at her for a little bit. Just before Ruby thought she was going to get killed, suddenly the large xenomorph heard something and took off. Okay, so that was One Eye. I think I remember now. We got kidnapped by One Eye. That's why Grid was acting strange. She knew One Eye was in the area. Would have helped if she warned us. And speaking of Grid came out of the vents. She looked around just in case One Eye was gone. She found her human companions and freed them from their restraints. Grid, you should have warned us back there. Yeah, would have helped. Yang said. Grid had hanged her head down, sort of apologizing for not warning them. She was really more panicked because One Eye was more feared, more dangerous, and the most feared xenomorph besides the Queen out of the entire colony. Okay, let's get out of here before he comes back. Grid opened up the little vent, allowing them to go in. Going completely underground again. They were walking around until One Eye busted through the ceiling. Hissing, trying to grab something, but then he disappeared. Grid hissed, wrapping her tail around Ruby and Yang protectively. Once everything was clear, Grid told them to keep on moving. You gotta find the others. Do you know where One Eye took them? Grid shook her head up and down. But the bad news was, besides of Ruby and Yang not be able to understand her Grid didn't have anything to write on. So instead, Ruby and Yang allowed her to take command and be more like a leader. Ruby noticed that her weapon was gone. Same thing goes with Yang's weapon as well. This is just great. One Eye must have taken our weapons away. That or we dropped them when he grabbed us. One Eye busted through the ceiling again, trying to grab them. Grid hissed. Hissed again. And then One Eye went away again. The trio made their way out through, the underground vents. Then they heard they heard One Eye banging through the glass. They panicked. Grid spotted a vent where they could go into. She led the way. Ruby and Yang followed, panicking right behind her. They went inside. They turned around right behind them. One Eye was too big to fit in the vents. He looked at Grid. Grid hissed at him and Grid and One Eye hissed right back. Grid knew that One Eye was gonna tell all the Queen about this, and Grid didn't care. She now had her new master, and that master was Ruby. One Eye ran away. Hat, take that, One Eye. Yang, don't tease him like that. Come on, it's not like he's gonna do anything. And, yeah, he might be going around waiting for us on the other side. And, unless he's going around trying to find our other friends. Once when they reached to the sewers was when they noticed all the frozen xenomorphs. Grid decided to crawl up on the ceiling, knowing that One Eye was not going to follow them down here, at least for now, at least. Grid, is this the area that Jackson mentioned, where all those xenomorphs ended up at, and only a few of them survived, and the explosive xenomorphs? Grid shook her head up and down. Oh, that's just great. Yang and Ruby decided to crouch down, moving very slowly. They were lucky enough that the other xenomorphs were not going to attack at Grid. But Grid decided to keep herself on the ceiling just in case. Yang and Ruby looked at all the dead xenomorphs. There was only a few skeletons. Yang found one particular skull that she wanted to bring back. Luckily, she was managed to keep it. She grabbed it and put it in her backpack. I'm going to show this to Dad when we get home. That's if we get out of here. Once when they saw a xenomorph up ahead, it was not Grid, it was one of the little explosive xenomorphs, they stopped moving. The only one that was moving was Grid. These xenomorphs will most likely recognize a fellow xenomorph and not attack. But these xenomorphs had no idea that Grid was helping two humans to get out of here and find their friends. Yang and Ruby noticed that this xenomorph was moving very slowly. Why is he moving very slowly? I have no idea and I don't care. And remember, Jackson said that they move fast once when they see you. Oh yeah. Yang and Ruby continued moving around, following Grid's path on where she was going. When the xenomorph got up, Ruby and Yang stopped, only when Grid continued to move. Luckily, she stopped when they stopped, not wanting to get up ahead of them. Ruby and Yang felt completely defenseless. Besides not being able to kill these xenomorphs, these xenomorphs would have killed them in an instant. And plus, Ruby and Yang didn't feel comfortable walking through all this sewer water. Every time that they moved, the xenomorph got back right up. But once when he stopped moving, Ruby, Yang, and Grid, they continued moving away. Then it took the 2 long to get past the xenomorph. Then it took the 3 long to get past the xenomorph. Ruby and Yang no longer felt the need to talk to Grid. Only able to talk to each other once when they felt like they were completely alone, and with no bombs and xenomorphs around them. Eventually, they got away. For now, until they spotted another xenomorph up ahead. Grid found a little sewer or lever and pointed and used her tail to point at that direction, giving Ruby and Yang the signal to move to that direction. They got out to the little lever, and Grid used her hand and pulled it down, triggering some noise. And just like that, the xenomorphs reacted crazy. They headed straight towards the pipes, and then boom, they just exploded. Holy crap! Ying, she was showing us to use the levers to create noise. It makes sense. These xenomorphs think that they hear an enemy nearby. Well, at least we sort of can fight back. Grit shook her head up and down. She continued to lead the way. They were alone for a while. No encounter with another xenomorph for a while. So, Grit, did you see where One-Eye took our other friends? Grit shook her head up and down again. Knowing that Grit is their only hope to get them out of here and to lead them towards their friends, Ruby and Yang continued to allow Grit to lead the way. Grit got up ahead of them once they encountered a few more xenomorphs and used her tail to point them to the right direction. They found another lever where they can activate the little sewer. Well, activating the pipes. Yang was a bit more closer by, so she was in luck. Yang stopped when a xenomorph nearby got up and started walking away from her. Grid gave her the all clear here to turn on the switch. Just like that, the xenomorphs got triggered and they went after the noise. And once when the xenomorphs heard the noise, they went after it, and of course they exploded again. Well, now we can sort of talk loud. Grid agreed, along with Ruby. So, now where we can go? Grid found a door and tried to open it, but it was no use. If she was a guard, she would have busted open the door. But luckily, Grid had the help of Yang to bust open the door using their combined strength. They found themselves into another room, and they spotted two more xenomorphs. Grid did the honors and got up ahead of them and activated the pipes. As usual, it creates noise, and of course, the two xenomorphs went towards the noise, and they exploded.